Howdy folks, Gerbo here. Welcome to Run 8 Train Simulator 3. I've had a few people ask me over the last year or two, to make a tutorial, and there's a lot of good tutorials out there. That's how I learned when I got started. But I thought I would kind of do my own take here in 2024 on Run 8 Simulator version 3. And we're going to do some of the basics. So you've just bought Run 8, now what? It is a fantastic simulator, but it's got a steep learning curve. There's a lot of documentation, but if you're not the kind of person that likes to just sit down and read a lot of documentation, it's kind of hard to get started. So we're going to fire up the sim. We're going to spawn in a train. We're going to drive that train over to an industry and drop off some cars to get processed. So it's just kind of a basic tutorial, but it may take a while because I'm going to go through it step by step and show you some tips and tricks as well. So right here at the first screen you get when you launch Run 8, and you won't typically want to change anything here unless you're going to a different region. So the base game comes with Southwest US region, and it comes with Mojave, Needles, and Yermo. So it comes with those three routes. So if I selected those three, that would be just the three routes that come with the base game. But you typically don't want to select anything down here. You want to just load all the routes. But since I do have a lot of extras, I'm going to go ahead and do this. So we just have the base game loading in. And then I've also bought the Southwest US, some DLC there. So you typically don't want to change anything on this screen. You're going to go to select scenario. So what's all this stuff? Well, let's just go over that real quick. So the extra board, that will just load an empty world, and then it spawns you at this place. So say you want to go to Barstow Hump Yard. There you go. That'll spawn you in empty world. You can also load in an empty world with a specific train. I have a lot of trains from a scenery pack, basically. Not a scenery pack, but somebody made a world with a bunch of trains. You won't have all these with the base game. You can pick a train if you want, and then you have a whole world, and that's like the whole world is populated. So I'm going to pick my Run 8 tutorial, and we're going to launch. But if you just want to hop in and take a look around, you can start with extra board and say, oh, I want to go to BNSF LA Malabar, assuming you have that DLC. Then it'll just spawn you down there. I hope that makes sense. So location, train, everything. So I'm going to load up my tutorial world. And we're going to get a train spawned in and just go over some of the basics of getting the train going, getting loco started, getting out on the main, all of that kind of stuff. So we're here at Mojave Yard, and there is nothing in the world. It's just track and scenery. There's no trains. So if you move your mouse up to the upper left, you get the menu. You can see total units in the world, 0. Now in my main save that I play with all the time, there's over 10,000 units in the world. So you can have a lot going on. You click the right mouse button, hold it down, you can move around. WASD, typical movement stuff. There is no jump. There is a fly option, which is super handy. So if I push left shift F12, that puts me in fly mode, and then E will make me go up, and Q will make me go down. And then the same movement controls as if you're walking around. That puts you in fly mode if you are moving forward, or moving in any direction. If you push shift, you go faster. Push control, you go even faster. So you can move around the world pretty darn quick. Then to get back down on the ground, you just push F12, and it'll just drop you to the ground wherever you happen to be flying around. So this is a railroad simulator, I hear you say. Where are the trains? Well, let's cover that next. We want to spawn in a train to drive. So I'm going to hit left control F1. And that brings up the train maker upper. There's a little bit of dry humor all through this game. So we're looking at all the different things here. And it starts out on Amtrak. Got freight locos, all freight cars. You can also narrow it down. Say you want to just look at covered hoppers. So let's get a freight locomotive. Let's just grab a couple of SD40-2s. Those are nice and easy. And I believe this is a UP yard, so let's grab a couple of those. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click add. And we'll go ahead and get 2. So that puts it over here in your new train. And we want box cars. We're going to go over that in a little bit, why we want box cars. But let's just grab a couple of these. Sure. You can click add. You can also just double click. So we don't need this much horsepower. I guess I could show if we want to remove it. So if you click over here and you click delete selected. So we'll do 1 loco, 4 boxcars. Another thing to note is if you right click on an entry, it'll flip it around. So it'll face it the other way. It's especially handy if you have multiple locos and you want them facing a certain way. So you have your train made up over here. We want to place a train. I'm going to click that. Then that puts us back over here. And when you hover over a track, it'll show you like a little ghost image of your train. And as long as you have room to spawn it, you can just left click. There we go. Then you hit escape to get rid of that. So now we are in the world and we have a train. And there's a lot to this, like how it picks the numbers and whatnot. But we're going to take it one step at a time. So let's get the locomotive started. The easiest way to do that is just to left click. You'll see train now belongs to you. So we now control this train. If we went over and clicked on something else, we wouldn't be in control of it. If we want to go select some other train, say we had another train set on this other track, we would go up here to our menu, train, relinquish. Now we're no longer in control of that train. So let's click on it again. So you can go through here and set your isolation switch and start it up. We're just going to do auto start. That's the easy way. And I'm going to do auto MU, auto circuit breaker. And also on the screen, you can see you got your headlight, you get your handbrake. So you can click just anywhere else on the screen to get rid of that. And I'm not going to go over every single thing. There's a lot going on here. We have our locomotive started up now. So we need to make sure our cars have air in them so we can have brakes. So let's take a look at that. Before we do, I want some information. Like I'm not inside the locomotive, so I can't see the gauges. So if I hold down left shift and push C, I'll get some info on the top of my screen here. Then if I do that again, shift C, it'll go away. This is really handy for when you're out and about. And there's a lot of other different infos that you can pull up with other key combos. So we got the local time. We've got our reverser status, how fast we're going, our main reservoir pressure, emergency reservoir, or sorry, equalizing reservoir. I always want to say emergency. Our brake pipe, cubic feet per minute, how fast the air is flowing through the system, what notch we're in, and then the brake cylinder pressure is your locomotive, your independent brake. And then how much pressure is on the coupler on your loco, what the grade is where we're at, and the distance counter. So we'll go over more of that stuff as we get along. But let's come over here to our car. And when you're walking around, shift also makes you go faster, and control makes you go much faster. So we have the train hooked up. We don't have any hoses hooked up. I might go over more advanced stuff in another video, but the easiest way to get going, and there are a lot of options in Run 8. If we come over here to train, come down here to F7 air brake cheat. Now I normally just have this set to air hoses. I'm going to turn all these on. So now when I push F7, it's going to connect up all the air hoses, make sure all these ankle cock valves are set the right way, and it's going to magically give us pressure in the brake pipe. So we're basically ready to go now. We're ready to rock and roll. If I click on this car, you can see its brake pipe's 89. So there's a lot of options. You can play as realistic or as easy as you want. So now we're sitting here. We've got the loco started. We've got air in the train. all the handbrakes are on by default. So if I click on this car, handbrake applied. Click on the loco, handbrake applied. You can go to each thing and release it that way. The easy way, bring this car up here, is just push F5. That will release all the handbrakes on your train. And you can see gravity is a thing. I'm going to put the locomotive brake on, the independent brake. So let's talk a little bit about keyboard controls before we get moving here. You can see our brake cylinder pressure went up to 72. That's a full application of the locomotive brake. So the controls are pretty straightforward once you get used to them. Your main controls are going to be your insert, delete, home in, page up, page down cluster on your keyboard, and the stuff around the number pad. So how did I put on full independent brake? I push right control, page up. So page up and page down, adjust your locomotive brakes. I'm holding page down now. You can see the pressure going down. I hold page up, pressure goes up, and tap. If I hold right control and hit page down, full release. And we're going to start rolling again because we have no brakes. Well, we got 3 PSI. Bail that off. We'll talk about bailing in a little bit. All right, so I'm going to put the loco brake back on, so we stop. Then along with page up, page down, we have insert and delete. So that is our reverser. Insert moves it forward. Delete moves it back. So if we hit delete, we go back to neutral. Delete again goes to reverse. And you can hear the engine revs up. So we're kind of in a low idle state. When your reverser's in forward or reverse, it comes up to ready idle or something. I forget what it's called. So just be aware of that. All right, so we're in neutral. And then home and end is the train brakes. And it works a little bit different from the independent locomotive brake. So if I just push home, just tap home, you can see our equalizing reservoir went down by 6 pounds. And then the brake pipe follows it. We have a really short train, so that went really fast. I'm not going to go super deep into brakes. That could be a whole video on its own. Train brakes are very complicated, and Run 8 simulates them pretty well. But we can click on this back car. We can see in the brake cylinder it's got 14 PSI. So the brakes have been applied. And that's the initial reduction. You just tap home, you get 6 pounds. You get some very light braking. Now if I hold down home, we can go all the way down to, well, 79. I tried to stop at 80. That's a little bit off. And then if I want to release that, I just hit end. And that fully releases the brakes. You don't have to do control like you do with the locomotive brakes. A little bit different. Home and end. So right across there, you got insert delete for a reverser, home and end for the train brakes, page up, page down for the locomotive or independent brake. So where are we going? That's a great question. Before we get started though, let's hop in the cab. So when you're in control of a train, you can hold left control and push F11. And that will pop you right in the cab. If you want to get out again, you just push F12. Just like to go back out of fly mode. And it'll plop you down on the ground next to your locomotive. Another handy key is left control F12. That will toggle between the front and back of your train. It'll just teleport you there. So here's the back of the train. Here's the front of the train. So left control F11. Let's get back in the cab. And then much like when you're walking around, you can hold right mouse button and then move the mouse around. You can look around. We got Bob, our conductor, over there with us. Then we got all these gauges and whatnot, and they actually move. Some of them are interactive with the mouse, but I just use the keyboard or my rail driver, so I'm not really that familiar with what all works in the cab. But since we hit auto circuit breaker, we're ready to go out. I am going to turn on my gauge lights. The light switches are interactive. And I'm going to turn on my headlight with the H. Put that on dim. H for headlight. And we're ready to move. Now, if you're up here and you've been looking around, you want to look forward again, you can just hit up arrow. Down arrow makes you look backwards. Up arrow makes you look forwards. There's a lot of keys. You'll get used to them. So we want to move out. Where are we going? Let's go into fly mode. So we're here in Mojave Yard, which is very empty. And we're just going to go across 2 mains over to this little branch here. Then there's a track that comes over here. We're going to drop off some cars right here at this industry. Nice and simple. I say nice and simple. There's a lot to do. So how do we get out on the main? We're the only train in the world, so we don't need we don't need to worry about dispatching and all that stuff. We were just gonna head out there. So I'm walking around. I'm gonna come over here. Once you're close to a switch, you can click. That will throw the switch. Green is normal. Not green is reverse. So we need to come out of that switch. And I can hold control to run really fast. We're going to come down here, throw that switch, and then we need to throw a whole bunch of switches to get across these 2 mains. So normally you would want to either be talking to Auto, the automatic dispatcher, or dispatching trains yourself. But we're not going to get into that in this video. That's a whole other topic on its own. And we're the only train in the world, so we don't care. We do need to get lined up to get over here. All right, so that will get us all the way over here. So let's talk about another little handy key combination is you can set, I think it's up to 5, maybe 6 teleport locations. So if I hit Shift 1, and that's the one above the number keys, not the one on the number pad. The one at the top row of your keyboard. It says position saved to slot 1. Okay. So I can walk over here. Now if I hit Control 1, boink, I go right back over there. This is really handy for solo ops. Just setting up little spots where you can just teleport back to them. So I'm going to set up a couple of those just so I can get back here easily. And I'm going to do Shift 2. There we go. Now I can go 1 and 2. I'm just holding Control, hitting 1 and 2. Super easy. And I'll do the same for here. We'll do Shift 3. Now I've got 3 save positions. And if I want to get back in my train, I hit left Control F11. And all these keys are, you'll get used to them. Look, we're almost 20 minutes in and we haven't even moved anywhere. This is a complex simulator. This is going to be a little bit of a longer video. All right, we want to get moving. I'm going to leave this info at the top. So we want to get moving. So we have a fully released train brakes. We got the locomotive brakes on. So we want to hit Insert. That's going to move my reverser to forward. And then I'm going to hit the plus key on the keyboard. This is the plus on your numpad. That puts me in notch 1. And you can see over here on this gauge, the amps went up. So we're putting power to the traction motors. But we're not moving anywhere yet. That's because our locomotive brake is fully on. And we're on a little bit of a grade here in Mojave, so I'm going to go ahead and have it in notch 1, and then we're just gonna hold down page down until we start bleeding off the brakes. Once we get down around 5 pounds or so, it should start moving. There we are, fully released. Spacebar is your horn. Make sure people know we're moving, even there's nobody here. All right, we are in motion. One thing I forgot to do, though, is tag my car. So we'll do that once we get over here and stopped. To have the industry process these cars, we have a little bit of homework to do. All right, let's go up to notch 2. We're in the yard. Now the star key or asterisk on your numpad toggles your counter. So you can see this number right here counting up. I turn that back off just by pushing asterisk again. Once I get over to here, I need to remember to hit that counter, and then that will count, and it'll beep when it gets to the length of your train. So then you can know, okay, I'm past that point. Really important when your train's like, half a mile or a mile long. We're going to keep our eye on our speed. We're doing all right. Probably even give her another notch. You can see we're going up a 1.3% grade, so it's a little bit of a grade. Up to about 15 now. Back on the throttle. So while we're moving along here, now if you push the 4 key, which the top row of your keyboard, number 4, that puts you in an orbit camera. Then your WSAD, move the camera around, Q and E tilted up and down. Same thing with shift and control, makes it spin faster. So you can get a nice outside following camera of your terrain. And I didn't do the counter, but I hit that so you can, it counts off the distance, and it'll beep when it gets to the length of my train. Coming through, folks. Alright, I'm going to kill the counter. And then to get back out of orbit view, just left control F11. Get you right back in the cab. And I don't know what the track speed limit is here. There's no penalty other than you can derail if you go too fast. There's no points or experience or anything in Run 8. You are your own boss. It's your railroad. And we do have a bit of a grade here. You can see we're just still doing 1.4%. But we're going to drop some cars off right over there. So I'm going to pull up clear of this switch. The switch right here. And then we're going to back in there. So that noise is relays. It's shifting different windings in the traction motor in this particular locomotive. Once you get above like 22 miles an hour, something like that. For better efficiency at speed. So that was that weird noise. Clunk, clunk. All right, we want to start slowing down. So I'm going to hit home for initial application. I'm going to hold the period key to bail off the locomotive brakes because we don't want locomotive brakes. So that releases the air from the locomotive brakes. We have just air in the train brakes. I'm going to hold home here. We'll do a 10-pound reduction. So we take it down to 80. And like I said, braking is complicated, but if you reduce your equalizing reservoir by 10 or 15 pounds, you'll eventually stop. It all depends on the weight of your train and lots of stuff like that. All right, we'll come back into neutral. Hit F12 to drop onto the ground. While that's coming to a stop. Well, it really doesn't want to stop, does it? I should have put a lot more air on there. I'm going to run back over here, and I'm going to do Shift 4, and we have another position saved. That train is really far away. But I can just hit left control F12, and it'll teleport me right back to the front of my train. So, we're going to have the industry work these cars. I'm going to go Shift F12, back to fly mode. So these cars, if I click on here, you can see its destination tag is none. Here it's Chicago Northwestern, I think, 307680. So the number is not represented on the texture of the car. Something to be aware of, but they are actual. They're all their own entities. Let's talk a little bit about tags. So the industry system uses tags to tell it kind of what to process, where your car is going. And that's a complex topic. I'm going to try to keep it somewhat simple. So if we go look over here at this industry, I'm going to hold right control and push F8 and turn on industry tags. So this is PRS. You see there's little red dots on the track. So any car on those red dotted area of the track, it will try to process. If the conditions are right, it will process that car. What are those conditions, you ask? I'm glad you asked. I'm going to get down close to the track here. I'm going to push left control I for the industry configuration button or window. I'm going to push search using the closest track. And if you're close enough, it'll say, oh, you're at this industry. or you can just pick it from the drop down. There's a few industries. So this is Progress Rail Services. And there's a lot going on this screen, but we're just going to talk about some of the basics. So incoming cars. Look down through here. The only thing it's got is boxcars. So it takes boxcars. It will take up to 10 of them. Although this number is kind of how many it will process, I think, every time period. It doesn't necessarily mean that's what the track holds, if that makes sense. So this takes boxcars, and it'll process 10 of them every 36 in-game hours. It's not real-life hours, it's in-game time. And it produces empties, so it wants loaded boxcars. If it produced loads, it would want empty boxcars. It would fill them up. And then there's a filter, but we're not going to get into that complex stuff. All we need to know is this industry takes boxcars, and it wants them to be loaded. So I'm going to hit escape. With left control F12 back over to my train. And then shift F12 to fly again. Now I'm going to turn on car tags. So left control F8. And these things sound complicated. You'll get used to the keys. So that turns on rail car tags unit number. When I hit that again, rail car tags destination. And you can see these all say none. It's a little bit hard to read against the desert there, but so in order for these to be processed for this industry over here, they need to be tagged for that industry. So I'm going to click on a car. I could go to each car and type in PRS right here. That would work. But I'm going to open the tagger. The tagger lets you operate on the whole train at once. So see, there's 4 boxcars here. I'm going to hold left control. So while holding left control, I left click, select all these guys. I can edit them all at once. PRS. Oops. PRS. Boom. So these are all tagged for PRS now. However, they are empty. Load weight, 0 tons. Now something that can trip you up is you can click load. See, it sinks down. It models the weight and the springs. Cool stuff. This is not fully loaded. It will put a random load in there. For it to be processed by the industry, it needs to be fully loaded. So just press and hold the up arrow. It's like these hold 105 tons. We go over to this one. We can click in here. Thought we could click in here. Oh, you can't. Never mind. Push load. Oh, you could use your scroll wheel too. Neat. Okay, 105. You can see the color changes. So green is empty, red is full. Hit load. It'll get it at least somewhat loaded. Then you just scroll up or hold down on this until it stops moving. It gives it a random load every time you click load. All right, these are all tagged for PRS. That's the industry over there. They are all full because it wants full cars. Let's take them to the industry. So how do we move the train now? Well, kind of like we did before. But before we do that, I'm going to hit Control 4. And I need to throw this switch. There we go. All right, Control F12, back over to my train. Shift F12 to fly mode. Now there's a tag for the loco. You can tag it for the loco and have a switch list. There's a lot to do here, but we're gonna keep it kind of basic. We're driving the train over. We're dropping off some cars to get them processed. So we are stopped. I want to go into reverse with delete. Remember, insert and delete is your reverser. And then I'm going to do plus on the numpad. Plus and minus on the numpad is your throttle. We'll give her a notch, and then I'm going to hit end to release the train brakes. Then they will gradually release, and we'll start moving. I think we're on a little bit of a, yeah, we're on a little bit of a grade, so. And then this particular industry has a really steep grade down into it, so we have to be careful. I've almost ran into stuff delivering to this industry before. I'm just going to keep an eye on the speed. Oops, I'm going to keep an eye on the speed. There's not a real good way to follow your train unless you're in the cab and use the orbit cam. A little more throttle. Because we are fully loaded now. We just added like 420 tons to the train. Alright, that should be plenty fast. So we need to be ready when we start heading down this hill here. And with the train, the air brakes respond kind of slowly. Although we only have 4 cars, so it's not going to be too bad. It's going to start dropping off right over around here. Yeah, there we go. So our loco now is on the downgrade. So I'm going to go ahead and put on... Go ahead and do initial reduction. So I hit home. Gives us initial reduction. I holding period. Bail off the loco brakes. Just hold that till it goes to 0 and let go. If it comes back up a couple pounds, just hold 0 again to keep it bailed off and let go after a couple seconds. As we head down in here, we're at -8, so I'm going to hold down home again. We're going to go and do a full 10 pounds, so down to 80 from 89.90. And we're going to need even more, so let's go for 75. Again, keeping the loco bailed off with the period key. And we're still flying out of control, so that's great. So if I hold right control and hit home, it gives me a full brake application. Again, period to keep the loco brakes bailed off. There we go. You can see just how fast we got going, even with a short train. And we don't want to stop, so it's kind of starting to stop. I'm going to give it some loco brakes just to help it out. That is really steep. Now we're coming to a stop. I'm going to do right control F8 and turn those tags off again. Okay, so that wasn't the greatest train handling. I was concentrating on tutorial instead of driving the train. But we made it to a stop. So these cars are here. They're in the catchment area where the red dots were on the track. So I'm going to click on this guy. I'm going to set a handbrake. And then I'm going to go F12 back down to the ground. And we need to be careful about how we unhook this, or we can blow the emergency on the loco. So what we need to do is we need to click on the coupler for the loco. So you can click on either one. I want to close the angle cock. See, that's closed now on the locomotive. So now when I disconnect from here, this hose is going to break apart. The air will blow out of the cars. The air will stay in the locomotive. So I'm going to pull the pin. If that is yellow and says open pin, it won't let you pull it because there's too much tension on the coupler. So something to be aware of. I guess I should have demonstrated that. Okay, I need to pull forward slightly, so insert for forward. I'm going to go ahead and hit the end key to release our train brakes. Notch up with the plus key. There we go. Let me just show the coupler thing. Some tension on here. Nope. Gotta keep the tension on it. We'll get it. Alright, put the loco brake on, so we're holding it. Okay, see it's yellow? Too much stretch force on the coupler. So it's pulling too hard on it, you can't pull the pin out. Something else to be aware of. Just going to release those. Loco brakes, it's going to roll back. Now it's turned white. We can pull the pin. What a 1% grade here. No wonder we were flying down through here. Okay. Just click anywhere else on the screen. It'll get rid of that. So if you clicked on here, just click anywhere else. All right, these cars are dropped off. We need 36 hours to pass. Do you sit here for 36 hours? No. You can come right up here and flip it. So we're May 9th, 2017 at 9:44 in the morning. It takes 36 hours for these to process, roughly. Let me just double check. Yeah, I did load all these. So there's a few different things you need to be aware of for stuff to process. It needs to be tagged for the industry. It needs to be either full or empty, depending on what the industry configuration wants. And you can't be in control of the train. So like if I say relinquish my train, click on here. So I'm now in control of these cars. They won't process. So just be aware of that. Make sure you're not in control of the cut of cars you're trying to process. Go back to my logo here. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it forward a couple days, and then this should process, in theory. Or it's going to make a liar out of me. Sometimes it does take a little bit. I went forward 2 days. Game? It's foggy on this day, apparently. It was 36 hours. Let me try one more day. There we go. The 36 hours isn't always exact. So you can see they are now empty, so their weight chains are kind of bouncing around a little bit. And then it randomly tagged them for those destinations that were in the left control eye here, industry configuration. So these are the process tags to choose from, comma separated list. So I don't know what these, like, I think that's Tulsa. I don't know what all these destination tags are. But. So now they would go to a yard and get sorted into a train that's going to whatever this destination this is, and you could send them on their way. And just run them off map, or you can just delete them, or whatever you want to do. But I'm going to hook back up to them, and we're going to pull back up there on the branch line. They're empty, so it's going to be easy to pull out of here. All right, our train is just sitting there. It's got full independent brake on, so right control page down. Do a full release on that, or you can just hold the page down key until it comes to 0. And we're on almost a 1% grade, so it's just going to roll backwards. And we're going to be about the right speed to couple, so I'll just let it bang into there. Now there's a handbrake on that car, so that's what's holding us back right now. So I did right control page up to get full application back on the locomotive brakes. I'm going to do left control F8 one more time, and that'll give you train stats. 0 loads, 4 empties, 148 tons, 287 feet long. One more time on left control F8. Rail car tags are off. All right, we let all the air blow out of here when we disconnected. So let's talk a little bit about that as we close out this video. Click on here, you can see brake pipe is 0. Now this brake cylinder, it's fully applied. So it basically, this set of 4 cars went into emergency. Because I just drove away, the hose blew all the air out. So there's no air in the brake pipe. So it put all the air into the brake cylinder. So it's sitting here with fully applied brakes. If I wanted this to roll, I could bleed that out. It would bleed all the air out of the system, and it would have no more brakes applied. Like I said, you could do a whole video just on air brakes. Let's get this hooked back up. So you can click on either coupler, and you can say connect the air hose. This angle cock is still open. Now we want to keep an eye on our cubic feet per minute. That's how much air is flowing out of the locomotive, basically. And if I just hit open right here, fully open the angle cock, it would shoot a whole bunch of air out, and it would probably trip the emergency. Like, it would think we broke an air hose because there's so much air rushing out. So we want to do a partial. That's why this partial option is here. So we just kind of crack open the angle cock a little bit. And if I was up here where we could see it, it's kind of just partially opened. Keep an eye on this cubic feet per minute. Once it gets below 100, or sometimes I wait down to like 70 or 60, then you're good to go ahead and fully open it up. If we had a big long train here, I'd want to give it a couple notches in neutral just so the mechanical air pump could pump faster. But we have a short train. You can see the car settle out there. That's because the brake pipe pressure came up, so the brake cylinder released. And we're just hanging here on the locomotive brakes right now. We don't really need extra air, so we're good to go. Let's hop in the cab. Left control F11. I'm going to hit Shift C to turn that back off. And somehow I got the sand turned on. Must have accidentally hit 0 on the number pad. Bob, did you turn the sand on? Nope, Bob didn't do it. All right, reverse her forward. Let's give her a couple notches. We can see the amps coming up on the meter. Right control page down, roll off those loco brakes. The red needles, the loco brakes. You saw that come down to 0, and we're off. So there is a ton more to cover, but I hope that helps somebody get started with spawning in a train and doing something. There's a world of topics we could talk about. So let me know what you thought. If there's something else you want me to go more in depth in, I might make more videos. Let me know in the comments. Happy railroading and have fun.